What if The Mandalorian and Grogu wasn't just another adventure, but the final chapter of Din Djarin's story? The newest trailer might have revealed something heartbreaking hiding in plain sight. Din Djarin himself says, "The kid will live centuries beyond me. I won't always be around to protect him." At a first glance, that sounds like a wise line from your mentor. When you look at the entire story of The Mandalorian, the lore of Mandalore, and Din's journey since Season 1, it starts to feel less like advice, but more like a foreshadowing. So, unfortunately, today we're going to break down why we have some theories and some speculations that Din Djarin will not make it out alive of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So, yeah, let's get into it. And right before we get into it, thank you for joining us today. My name is Brandon of Claim Mandalorian. We talk all things Star Wars on the channel, whether that's lore, theories, Funko, and Lego. So go ahead and consider subscribing. You can always change your mind later. From the very first episode of The Mandalorian, Din Djarin's story has never been about power, glory, or even Mandalorian politics. It came around to protecting a foundling. When Din Djarin first discovers Grogu during that bounty hunting mission, everything changed. He breaks the rules of the bounty hunter guild, he betrays the Empire, he fights entire squads of stormtroopers. And why? Because the Mandalorians live by a simple creed: this is the way. And one of the most sacred traditions in Mandalorian culture is the protection of foundlings, orphaned children adopted into the Mandalorian way of life. Din himself was a foundling, rescued during the Clone Wars by the Mandalorians of Death Watch. So protecting Grogu wasn't just his mission, it was his destiny repeating itself. But if you think about it, the story has always been building toward one inevitable moment: the day Grogu no longer needs Din Djarin. Another huge piece of Din Djarin's story is how his life evolves around being a Mandalorian. The rule was simple. Din was raised by a strict sect known as the Children of the Watch. A Mandalorian must never remove their helmet in front of others. But Din breaks this rule multiple times. We see him remove his helmet to get access to the Imperial Terminal, and then again in the emotional Season 2 finale when he removes it to say goodbye to Grogu. Because in that moment, being a father mattered more than being a Mandalorian. But for Din, that came with consequences. He was then declared an apostate, meaning he is no longer considered a Mandalorian by the Creed. But what is the only way one can redeem themselves? And this is by traveling to Mandalore and to bathe in the living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore. And this moment was extremely important for Din Djarin, because with the Mandalorian culture, it is built on the ritual rebirth. Din's journey to the living water symbolized a spiritual reset, like a warrior returning to the path one final time. Almost like the story was preparing him for one final mission. By the time we reach Season 3, something interesting happens. Din Djarin is no longer the center of Mandalorian destiny. That role shifts to Bo-Katan Kryze. She becomes the one destined to reunite Mandalore. She leads the Mandalorians back to their homeworld, she's wielding the lightsaber, and she becomes the symbolic ruler of Mandalore's future. Meanwhile, Din takes on a different role. He becomes something far more personal, not a ruler, but a father. And at the end of Season 3, Din officially adopts Grogu as his son. Grogu is given a Mandalorian name, Din Grogu. Then Din Djarin retires the Mandalorian politics to live a quieter life while working with the New Republic to hunt Imperial remnants. Narratively speaking, this is the perfect setup for a heroic sacrifice, because Din's purpose has already been fulfilled. He found his family, he redeemed himself, and he raised his son. So as we look into the trailer, let's talk about the biggest clue. Din Djarin gives us that heartbreaking line: "The kid will live centuries beyond me. I won't always be around to protect him." And that line carries a lot of weight, because we know that Grogu's species ages extremely slow. Grogu is already around 50 years old, but is still essentially a child. Meanwhile, Din Djarin is human. Even if Din was to live a full life, Grogu would outlive him by centuries. But the trailer doesn't just mention that fact. It kind of frames it emotionally, like Din Djarin is preparing Grogu to have a future without him. And if this film truly ends the Mandalorian story, this could be setting up another moment like Obi-Wan to Luke, or even Kanan to Ezra. The master sacrifices himself, that way the student can live. Now I do have a speculation that Grogu will tap into the dark side. Depending on what happens to Din Djarin, I do believe that Grogu has already had a dark past, so Din dying wouldn't just be tragic, it would completely change Grogu's future. And like I said, Grogu has already shown signs of dark side emotion. Just like when he protected Din from Cara Dune, Grogu used the Force to choke her. That's a classic dark side ability, and Grogu's past is still mysterious. We know that he survived Order 66. He witnessed the fall of the Jedi. He carries deep trauma. So if Din Djarin, the one person who gave him safety, were taken away, that could push Grogu into a very dangerous emotional place. And that kind of story would be incredibly powerful, because then Grogu wouldn't just be this cute character anymore. He would be a force wheeler dealing with loss, anger, and now an identity. So now we think, who's gonna take on Grogu? Who's gonna raise him after Din Djarin doesn't make it? So if Din truly doesn't survive this film, someone would still need to take care of Grogu. There are several possibilities, but number one, of course, Bo-Katan Kryze. She already respects Din Djarin and could honor his legacy by helping raise Din Grogu as a Mandalorian warrior. Another possibility is that Grogu could even reconnect with the Jedi path. We know that he was trained briefly with Luke Skywalker, and far in the future, he could even cross paths with Rey Skywalker. But in the near term, Grogu would still be considered a child. He would still need a mentor, and whoever takes that role is stepping into the shadow of Din Djarin. So in conclusion, Din Djarin began his story as a lone bounty hunter, but over time he became something far more important. He became a protector, and then a father. A Mandalorian who proved that the creed isn't just about helmets or armor. It's about family. And if the Mandalorian in Grogu is Din Djarin's final showing, he did it all for family. Maybe in a sacrifice to save Grogu. This could honestly be the most Mandalorian way out. Because in the end, Din Djarin didn't just raise Grogu, he ensured that the next generation would survive. And of course, this is the way. So with that little breakdown, what are you guys thinking? Is this completely far-fetched? Is Din Djarin gonna survive and then go on and fight Thrawn with the rest of the Mandoverse group? Let me know down in the comments. Now, the more and more I see Din Djarin and the more I see the trailer, I just keep revisiting these ideas that Din Djarin just is not making it. And I absolutely love Din Djarin. I think he's an amazing character. The Mandalorian, the show, the series, it is so perfect. And I would hate to see a character like him go, but at the same time, it just adds that emotional stake to an all-time high, and it also gives Grogu a chance to grow as a character. Now, we do know that Grogu could potentially be the entire future of Star Wars going forward. I mean, if you want to expand 500 years down the timeline, Grogu still has a chance to be there. So he could definitely be like the next Yoda style character. So I mean, with all that said, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're super close to hitting 1,000. I mean, we're only 90 away. Thank you guys for getting us here. And of course, like the video, lets the YouTube algorithm know that we can push this video right here out to other Star Wars fans like yourself and I. So with all that being said, guys, thank you for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.